meeting on October 27th of the Budget Advisory Commission. It is 12:03 p.m. I am Lindsay Hobson, the chair. Vice Chair Anna Brawley will be joining us in about 15 minutes or so. If we could go ahead with the roll call. Oh, I'm sorry, the land acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Let me
start up world, right? Because I think we kind of have to be very optimistic.
Sorry, is that Jimmy? If you could mute. Everyone could mute if you're not speaking. Sorry, I have to pull up the land acknowledgement really quick. So a land acknowledgement is a formal statement that recognizes and respects Indigenous peoples and the enduring relationship that exists between Indigenous peoples and the land. We acknowledge that we live and work on the unceded land of the Dena'ina people, and we thank them for their past, present, and future stewardship of the land on which we live. Marilyn, if you could do the roll call.
Hello, thank you. I apologize, this is the first time I did this. So Lindsay Hobson, excuse me.
Yep. Present.
Anna Brawley. And she's excused for the first several minutes. Carolyn Hall. Tasha Hodge.
Here.
Jonathan King.
Here.
Nolan Clouda.
I'm here.
Carla McConnell.
Hi, Marilyn. I'm here.
Hi, Carla. Jimmy Miner. Alyssa Rodriguez.
I'm present.
And James Smallwood.
Here.
Thank you. And I didn't hear from Jimmy Miner.
This is Lindsay Hobson. For the record, I can see that Jimmy Miner is online. He just may have some trouble accessing that mute button. So I do see that he is present and called in.
Okay, we'll note that. Thank you.
All right, and for the approval of the agenda, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. This is Nolan.
Tasha Hodge, second.
Okay, so what we're really doing today is, let me back up a moment. Marilyn, would you like to introduce yourself and maybe explain the shift that's occurred?
Sure, thank you. I will do what I can. So I am Marilyn Bonzoff. I am the longtime Deputy Director for the Office of Management and Budget. I have been with the city for, math is hard, but I'll start with, I think I started back in 2004 as a grant accountant, then became the grant accounting supervisor, and then with the goal of becoming an O&B analyst, which I attained, I believe, around 2008 or 2009. And then after a couple years in O&B, I did become the deputy director. The position is meant to maintain continuity in the process of the department, because we know that a lot of, through the budget department is a lot about policy, but we've got a huge process that we do. And so that's why this position was created. So in that, with the change of Mr. Raskowitz, he now is in a position at the mayor's office, and so since we don't have a current approved approved director or assigned director, I am now filling the role of acting director for this department.
Great. Well, thank you. I would say welcome, but it does. You have been here for a while and have been a great resource. So thank you for that. Jonathan, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and say congratulations to Marilyn and also tell her you've got this. We have great confidence in your ability to speak to the budget and we've seen over the years you know what's in the budget. You know what's in the budget better than anybody else that's in this room, and so it's just for me, at least personally, it's an atta girl moment, and looking forward to working with you.
Wow. Through the chair, do I respond, or I'm not worthy, and I really appreciate the vote of confidence. Thank you. And I will do what I can with the amazing team that we have to support your request and perform for the city.
So, Marilyn, do you mind if it sounds like, a few members, may have questions about the budget as we look forward to, crafting a resolution to potentially present to either the school board or the assembly. It would be helpful to get some of those questions answered. So do you mind if we kind of walk through a few questions, if anyone would like to raise any at this point?
I do not mind, and I will do what I can to answer, and if not, we will do what we can to get back to you in a timely manner.
Okay, great. After reviewing the budget, I will start, and the first thing that kind of stood out to me was the elimination of the Economic and Community Development department and sort of that reorganization underneath the mayor. I was just wondering if you could kind of explain that a little bit, if you know about that from a budgetary standpoint.
Boy, that it is. So through a budgetary standpoint, I know we do have a graphic that shows the cost changes, and can I walk through a document in our publication that might show the budget movement for this change, and would that help, or?
I think, yeah, absolutely.
The perspective you're looking for?
Yes, that'd be a big help.
And so I will drive. I did stop sharing. Okay. Thank you. So the document is available in our budget overview. I wonder, okay, I'll just do it this way. Well, actually, sorry, I apologize. Let me regroup. I apologize. I'm going to do this a different way. I think what I'll do is reference the documents that are available online, and that way you will have that information for. My default is to go to our Excel files, but I think what I'll do is make sure we go to the documents that are available for everyone to reference at any time. At the muni.org, OMB is a department, or Management and Budget, Office of Management and Budget is a department. And then it opens up to our homepage, and we have the 2022 proposed general government operating budget. In the overview document, there is a page that we show all departments changes from 2021 proposed, or pardon me, 2021 revised, which is the last full budget iteration that was approved by the Assembly. The movement to continuation, which is that budget year's activity at the proposed budget year's costs, and then the reorganization, and then the proposed changes. That schedule is available in the overview of the general government operating budget document, and I apologize for doing it this way. On page 15. And I'm sharing Lila's screen actually to show this document movement. So the reorganization, so how this chart works is it does show the reductions of existing departments, which to note one of them was the economic and community development, and then how it moved to other departments. And really, the changes in economic community and community development, excuse me. The development services, or oh, excuse me. So economic and community development portion of it went to community development, which is the department where Mr. Trombley, I so apologize. I'm trying to do this in a linear fashion. And I'm trying to think of the best way to convey this. And maybe we'll do a picture too. And one thing that's interesting about this reorganization is that it is actually a very similar organization to what has been done in the past. That is, I don't know if that helps folks who are here now to know that, oh, it's the way we've done it in the past, but there's just some slight movement of bits to different departments, but the functions are still there. Let me do another reduction. So what we see here is the community development department, which what is at the same structural level, excuse me, of what the economic and community development department used to be. It still has a director, which I don't know if you recall, before it was Mr. Schutte under the previous administration, and it is now Mr. Trombley. The movement from economic and community development went to went in part to community development, and I believe that is the I know the pieces that'll have to get back to me. I'll start with the easy piece. The larger bit of economic and community development used to be the culture, entertainment, and arts and venues, which is this huge chunk of budget that is basically for the Sullivan Arena, the PAC, or pardon me, the Performing Arts Center and the museum. That went to the Muni manager. So that's one part of economic and community development that went away, probably the biggest part of that department. And then the I team that was part of that department went to information technology, which may not be easy to see in this graphic because IT did was reduced by the movement of payroll from IT to HR, but then that offset is to IT is the increase of I-team. And then the last bit of the ECD that went to community development is, I believe, the bits of admin. And I don't want to make something up.
Okay, I think Nolan has a question.
Okay, thank you. I apologize.
No, I think that is helpful. So thank you for that. Nolan, do you have a question?
Yeah, thanks. Through the chair, what I've been wondering about with the reorg is is what sort of, was there analysis, or was there kind of a rationale behind some of the movements, like to make services more efficient, or was there what's the greater justification for reorging quite a few departments? Is there anything that you can share with us from that standpoint?
To the, I dare say that, a lot of the previous departments are still intact, and I wouldn't, so there is and was thought put into it where you will probably recognize the majority of the departments that are still featured, but now under a different organization. So we still have, traffic engineering, PM&E, the other service areas, which is the LURSAs, the majority of the road service areas, which is more of a budget item than an activity, and then maintenance and operations. So all these were previously departments. They now are under the Public Works Department. And then same with planning and development services. They were previously departments, they're just now divisions under building services. The structure, the intent of this structure is meant to streamline, and in that the building services department that now houses development services and planning is meant to represent the private development, whereas the Public Works that has these three departments now is meant to represent or accommodate public development. So that is a generalization of this structure. Does that help?
I think it does. I mean, in general terms, it's streamlining of departments or aligning with logical functions or something along those lines. But in some cases, though, the changes aren't necessarily obvious, like the library being within Parks and Rec, or things like that, where it's not necessarily clear why it's better. Is there a cost savings to be had? Is there some kind of improvement to services? It wasn't necessarily self-evident in all cases, I guess.
Sure. And I believe the retention of the library and the Parks and Rec, they had been, it's interesting, if we were to flip through all the reorgs throughout time, you'd probably see them kind of shifting and ebbing and flowing in the same groups and maybe apart from them. So I believe, and I'd have to go back through to actually cite my source, Parks and Rec and library used to be, I believe, grouped together previously, maybe not necessarily in one. I'd have to look, but I think for this structure, it still maintains a grouping that they had been in a previous structural iteration, and not necessarily align with the community development division, or pardon me, branch. So I would say they were probably that is part of that structural design.
And so, kind of following up on that, when we look on your the spreadsheet, when you see the funds reallocated from economic and community development to the municipal manager, is that then, I mean, how are those funds then redistributed to achieve, you know, I mean, if it's not taking away essential functions of the department, how are they being adequately funded? I mean, is it allocated through the municipal manager then?
Oh, the funding is the same for library, or the funding is the same for the library department. It is now a division in Parks and Rec.
Oh, sorry, I was talking about the community development, the economic and community development.
I apologize.
Yeah, kind of zeroed out there.
And can you repeat the question then?
So I thought that you explained that those funds were then reallocated to the municipal manager.
Yes.
And so then what is the process from there, so that new division, I just don't see it on here, is funded to perform those same functions?
It is.
Okay.
And so you can see that, oops, apologize. So the largest chunk that used to be an ECD is that culture, entertainment, and arts and venues, and that's now a division under the municipal manager.
Okay.
I believe it had been in previous iterations ago. One of my rainy day projects that I'd like to get done is just looking through a stack of the different org structures over time.
Okay, thank you so much for that clarification. And I see Carla, you also had a question in the chat, or a comment. Did you want to elaborate or ask a different question? Okay.
Yeah, actually I do. And Marilyn may have just answered this, but I have brought up several times. I did a deep dive on Parks and Rec last year, the year before, I guess it was the year before now, and had stumbled across the fact that there are certain community areas that are not paying what I consider their fair share of their Parks and Recs dues or taxes, you might say, especially Upper Hillside and the Basher area. I had brought this up quite a few times and wondering why. I could never get an answer why they were exempt from paying for Parks and Rec the way that the rest of us were in, you know, down in the basin, especially Basher, who backs up to one of the largest parks in the city. But it was, and I'm sure Nolan probably saw this too, which might be why he questioned it today in the newspaper. Somebody actually put it there in a letter to the editor. They put the library under Parks and Rec. There are portions of Anchorage that are not paying the same tax rate as we are for Parks and Rec. How is the library? Are we going to burden the cost for the library for those communities that don't pay into Parks and Rec? Marilyn, I'm sure you understand what I'm talking about. I know I'm not quite saying it directly, but is that the case? Will they still be taxed? Will those areas still have a lower tax rate for Parks and Rec than we do in the main basin area?
It's through the chair, and I apologize for my Robert's rules are very novice. That is an excellent question. So we are, the municipality of Anchorage is very much structured by service areas, and each service area is its own entity with a fund, and the costs of that service area are posted to this fund, as are the revenues for that service area. So what I'm showing you here is page 16 of the overview of the 2022 proposed budget. And what this chart shows is the fund structure by department. So for Parks and Rec, previously, they probably didn't have much of an area-wide component, but the library is an area-wide service, and it will remain an area-wide service in the area-wide fund. So this doesn't address the question of folks in the park service area, which is actually 161, so that's a different geographic service area. So that question may still linger as far as, folks who are outside of this graphical area, they'll still not be paying taxes for this area. But the library is still an area-wide function and it remains in the area-wide fund.
Okay,
it
so
doesn't,
those areas do still continue to pay their portion of the library taxes, but the Parks and Rec is still something that needs to be hopefully adjusted someday so that they pay their fair share of Parks and Rec. You don't have to answer that.
Thank you.
I just want to note that Vice Chair Anna Brawley joined us at 12:24. And then Nolan, did you have another question or was your hand up from earlier? Oh, never mind, you lowered it. Okay, just to recap, Anna, we've been talking about some of the questions regarding the reorg and specifically looking at library and the economic and community development shift. So does anyone have any other questions for Marilyn or comments in general?
Thanks,
John?
Lindsay. I was
Go
gonna say
ahead.
I saw Jonathan's hand.
Jonathan, go ahead.
Yeah, and maybe Anna will want to leap in on this, but I'd like to talk about what seems to be a major change in policy, which is some of the alcohol tax money. And there's a couple different layers to this. The layer that I'm most interested in is, with the alcohol tax money, we created mobile crisis teams, and those are we just got them stood up. They sit inside of the fire department. The purpose of a mobile crisis team is to interact with someone who is in a mental health crisis and to lower the temperature of the situation, thus making sure that we don't have to involve our police forces, who are not generally trained to deal with mental health crises. And this is part of the larger Crisis Now model. The budget, as I understand it, and as it was explained in the Assembly work session last week, would take the $1.5 million currently allocated to the mobile crisis team. It would cut it in half. Half of that would come back as realized savings to the municipality. In other words, they wouldn't spend the money. The other half, the mobile crisis team, would be essentially wound down, and the other half of the money would be sent over to what are called mobile intervention teams at the police station, at the police department. The mobile intervention teams, even though both of these teams have mobile and team in them, it's a fundamentally different service that's being provided. This is, the idea for the mobile intervention teams was when the police department was clearing out homeless encampments, is that there would be a process for getting people in touch with the services that they need. It is not an acute situation service, but the cut, as it was portrayed by the administration, and the reorganization, as it was portrayed by the administration last week, was they see this as a duplication of services. And it's not a duplication of services. And so the way that I see this is it's really an abandonment of all of the process that went into how to use the alcohol tax. And it's not a service duplication. So I guess there's nobody here from the mayor's office to speak to this, but I encourage members to go back and listen to the morning session around this. And perhaps Anna, you might pop in now. I don't have a question. I'm just raising this as a challenge within the current budget that this is not a cost-free rotation that's being suggested here. It's actually a wholesale abandonment of something the community worked really, really hard on. So, Madam Chair, if I might cede over to Ms. Brawley, who had her hand raised.
Yep, go ahead, Anna.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. And so I'm definitely not the expert on this, on the mobile crisis team, but what Jonathan said was accurate. And I think there are several folks who are working on this, and I know the Assembly has a work session scheduled for, I think, Friday the 12th. So the week before the one for amendments. So I know they're going to dig more into this. They had a lot of questions that that they said, let's answer that in that other session. But yeah, I think so they are proposing to keep, I guess, a couple social workers. You know, that's part of the model, is to make sure that you're not just responding with police, but that's what's called a co-response model, where you've got a social worker sitting in the passenger seat or in the back of the police car. And so, as Jonathan said, it really is an abandonment, because the whole goal of that type of model is that you're not responding with police if it's not a criminal issue. So somebody who's suicidal or you know, in behavioral health crisis is not having law enforcement or someone with a uniform, that uniform coming to them, but really to help to people who are trained in that area to be the responders. So again, there was discussion, and then the administration was portraying it as still the same model, but it just isn't. And there are other folks who have expertise and have been working on that model for a long time. So they're certainly going to speak up and are providing information.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you both for that insight. And I know that alcohol tax is definitely something that we spent a lot of time on here at the Budget Advisory Commission. And so in light of that, is that perhaps, you know, a point that we want to weigh in on our resolution? I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts about that, but just something to consider. And you know, on that point, I spoke with Lila about, you know, taking a look at, you know, what the proposed resolution, or the resolution that we submitted regarding the budget for in November 2020. And so I guess I'm not really sure. Maybe Alyssa or Jonathan or somebody could weigh in on you know, how we went through this process in the past in terms of actually creating the resolution, or Nolan. Oh, go ahead, Nolan.
Yeah, I think I think something that we could do, you know, one way we could do this. I know that as we go, we probably all have you know, questions and stuff that we want to talk through in the budget. And I think Jonathan's approach of bringing up, you know, here's an issue in the budget that I'm concerned with. Maybe that's something that we could do. Raise our major you know, concerns or things that we like or don't like about the budget, and then I think we can build a resolution around that. That's along the lines of what we've done in the past, I think.
Okay, great. And anyone else want to weigh in on that? I mean, I think largely it's built around feedback in this group, and with the assistance from OMB. So go ahead, Anna.
Yeah, I guess, and sorry, like I said, I'll catch up on the first portion of the meeting later, but yeah, I definitely, when I read the budget, it looked like a lot of the changes did have to do with alcohol tax, as opposed to, you know, most of the budget isn't really changing, or it's being reorganized, but not, you know, going up or down. So I definitely would like to see some recommendations and making sure that we're using the alcohol tax as the voters intended, because I have some concerns there. But also would like to see a comment. I'm just curious about what the costs of this reorganization are, because I know that departments do change over time, but you know, like it just, to me, it sounds like a lot of disruption, and I'm not clear on what the benefit is for a lot of it. You know, in terms of relocating people or departments or divisions or whatever it is. And then I do have some questions about the new positions being created to kind of oversee those departments that already exist. So anyway, so in terms of process, I mean, I could generate a long list of things that I'd like to see in the resolution. So maybe it's also a matter of prioritizing or you know, looking at what the biggest changes are. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. And so I see Lila has up now the 2020 resolution. Would it be possible to email this around? Go ahead, Nolan.
Yeah, one approach we might be able to do. I mean, I know that we've only got about 22 minutes left. I know this because I think we're ending at 1, right?
That's right.
then one thing we might be able to do is if we kind of go around to each of us, we could have each person suggest things in the budget that they would like to comment on, or that they that probably deserves mention in the resolution. I'm sure a lot of us will name some of the same things, and that helps us figure out that those are a higher priority. Maybe that might be something that we could do, and then that would help us to get to closer to where we have language for a resolution.
Sure. Yeah, we could definitely do that. Are there any other, so let's take the last, let's take maybe like 10 minutes more on, asking questions about the budget. Does anyone else have any questions or any things they want to flag for discussion? Jonathan?
Yeah, I suspect the answer here might be no, because Marilyn is interim, right, and or acting, and at the same time there's nobody here from the mayor's office. So there's a $1 million cut to pre-K services, and there's been a lot of focus in the community recently about spending money upstream so that we don't have to spend money downstream, and pre-K is a prime example of this. The return on pre-K dollars is 7-to-1 over the long run in terms of returns to the society, and yet we're having the amount of money that we're sending into supporting pre-K, and that money goes to support pre-K for kids that live inside of Title I school areas. In other words, the kids that are most in need of pre-K services. I'm just wondering if Marilyn knows the thinking behind that, or is that just a question for the portions of the administration that aren't here today?
Through the chair, the latter. I do not have the answer to that question at this time.
Thank you.
Through the chair, this is Alyssa. I have kind of a similar question, and this is more of a point of clarification to really anyone to refresh my memory. I thought that the process was that the administration essentially and assembly essentially approve the ASD budget, not that they can dictate the kind of where the funding goes. And so I was hoping somebody could help me out there. I didn't have the time to really dig into that, but am I remembering that correctly, or can anybody help me?
That's correct, Alyssa. It comes to the municipality for approval. It comes to the assembly for approval. But I think that this pre-K money is municipal money that's being used to, in the case of what I raised, it's municipal money that is helping support those programs as opposed to school district money.
Okay, thank you for that. I think I had a fundamental misunderstanding. I thought that the Muni was directing that the ASD had to cut that money. So that's where my confusion was coming from. So I appreciate that. I would second that. I think that this is a huge issue in terms of when we're writing our resolution. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, if I may, is just kind of as I'm reading through the budget, looking at both the reorg and then cuts, I generally have a big concern about what I am perceiving as an overall kind of removal. I don't know if I'm not using the right word. I can't think of the word I want to use, of our investment in economic development. So in general, when I look at the budget, I'm seeing the administration pull money away or take a department and put it under another, and in that way kind of diminish the importance of it. From my perspective, economic and development in Anchorage in general. And with that, I'll stop.
So, oh, Anna, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, thanks. It was just adding in a few more concerns or questions, but I echo what other folks had said about the pre-K funding and the economic development, for example, it looks like there's a total $250,000 cut to AEDC. I don't know if that was brought up. It's in multiple departments, but that is what I understand the total is as the Muni's municipal contribution. Another question I had, and again, Marilyn, I don't know if you have more information, but I did flag this one, is there's a cut of 2 municipal attorneys in the law office, or in the attorney's office. So one is criminal, one is civil, and there's also a cut to a law secretary. And I don't believe that was covered in the work session on Friday that I listened in on. So I just wondered if you have information about that, or if we should ask somebody else.
Through the chair, the municipal attorney department was not presented at the work session this past Friday, but it will be this upcoming Friday. And I do believe the actual municipal attorney will be there to answer questions, and we'll make sure that he, if he doesn't answer sufficiently at that time, we can ensure that your question is responded to.
Okay, yeah, okay, thank you. Then that would make sense to just listen to Friday.
So, James, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do. So I was looking at this list, and there's this department called Building Services, and I don't see that from last year. Is this a new department that they're creating, or is this something that they consolidated with different departments and they're now calling it Building Services? Can you explain that? Unless I'm just missing something. I just didn't see it looking at last year's. I just didn't see that particular department called out, called Building Services.
Marilyn, would you be able to? Oh, sorry.
No, excuse me, I wasn't sure if you wanted me to speak or not, so I apologize.
Oh, yes, I see that you've brought up the page. If you could just kind of walk through that.
Yes, absolutely. So Building Services is a new department in 2022. It does have a director that will now be overseeing what used to be Development Services, is now Division in Building Services, as is Planning. So additionally, with those 2 previously identified departments, there's actually an addition of a few more staff for this department that are included in this department. And again, the Building Services is, in general, the private development department, the private development activity department.
Does that include like leasing as well? Or would that be under real estate?
Municipal leases, or I apologize,
Right.
excuse me.
Yep.
Those
Sorry,
are
yeah.
probably, oh, so sorry. Through the chair, sorry. The municipal leases are, I believe, still handled by the real estate department, which is still a department, but it's under the community development branch.
All right,
And
great.
that includes the planning department that's going to be under there too?
Through the chair, the planning department is included in Building Services. And may I bring up the org structure again?
Yeah.
Please.
And I don't know if folks had an opportunity to go through the entire budget book. I know you mentioned a lot of interest is in the alcohol tax. It does have its own appendix, just if you haven't observed that yet. So just so you know, it's Appendix R. But to answer the question, to go to the actual org structure for 2022 proposed, it is in the introduction. And this is the org structure where planning and development services are included in Building Services. And then
I believe the leases are still handled, the municipal leases are still handled under real estate department. We will be presenting the actual code change for this org structure in November on an ordinance.
I guess you won't be able to answer that question, but my other question to that is just kind of what some of us board members have already asked, the rationale behind some of the changes, and I guess you can speak to that because we don't have someone from the administration to address that, but that would be one of my follow-up questions to that.
Okay, so if we could possibly, reach out to someone from the mayor's office to help us, and also it sounds like they're having a session on this in November. Do you know the date for that on the reorganization session? Did you say it was an ordinance? Marilyn?
Yes, it will be an ordinance that will be presented to the assembly, and I believe hopefully on the November, it being an ordinance via code change or creating a code change for the executive structure or administrative structure, it would require a public hearing, so it would be introduced and then the next meeting would be public hearing. At this time, I don't believe we have an actual work session scheduled for it, but it would go through the normal assembly process.
Okay. And sorry, I don't have those dates in front of me again. Would you remind me of the timeline for the budget approval process?
Yes. Do I have a calendar? So we have, is there a better calendar?
There's one online.
Yeah. So it is basically we'll have a public hearing today at the assembly meeting today, another public hearing at the assembly meeting, the first assembly meeting in November, which is the 9th, and then a final the final assembly meeting in November, which is the 23rd. That's when it's expected to be approved.
Okay.
And sorry, I'm slow on bringing up the calendar. It's in here, isn't it? Sorry. So we do have a calendar. There we go.
Okay.
So, and I guess importantly, this coming Friday is the second work session that the administration will be going over the proposed budget, and this will be the final departments in general government that weren't presented last week, and then additionally the enterprise utilities and ACDA.
Okay. And so then the session on the code change an ordinance would be obviously sometime before that November 23rd.
I am not aware. Oh, excuse me.
Oh, I was finished. I'm sorry.
At this time, to my knowledge, we do not have a work session scheduled to go over the reorganization.
Okay.
The proposed reorganization.
And so we just have, thank you so much for answering these questions and helping us kind of work through this together. I've taken some notes, and I kind of think that we have 3 major areas that we would potentially weigh in on, and I'm going to kind of just quickly go through these, and if there's anything that I've missed, or something else that has not been brought up that members of this committee would like to see addressed in a resolution, just please raise your hand. So the 3 areas I see are reorganization, which would include the community and economic development issues, investment issues, as well as the building services. the alcohol tax, and then the pre-K funding. Does that about sum it up, or is there something else that should be added to that list of potential areas for us to weigh in on via a resolution? Jonathan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have something about process that I think belongs in the resolution, and this is not in any ways directed at Marilyn, who just took over. You know, this is my 4th time through the budget cycle, and in every time previous, we received a presentation from the Office of OMB that was essentially the draft of the presentation that was going to the assembly. So if you go and watch the assembly work session from last week, there's like a 50-page presentation, and the prior OMB director would go through that presentation and really give us an understanding of what was going on in the budget and be able to explain the different moves, what was happening, and all that. That has simply not been provided to the commission this year. I think it explains one of the reasons why we're getting, when we're in these meetings, we're struggling a little bit, is that we're not being supported in the way that, one, in my opinion, the way the municipal code requires us to be supported, and that we've been supported in the past. And I think that deserves to be in that resolution, that the administration did not provide the support required by code for the Budget Commission to essentially do its one job, which is to advise the Assembly on the condition of the budget. It's much harder this year. It's much more opaque. It's much more confusing, and there's much less high quality information available. So thank you for the opportunity to pop in.
Great, thanks, Jonathan. Tasha?
Thank you. I guess one of the things I'd like for us to weigh in on are the cuts to the health department. It looks like it's 19%.
Okay. Marilyn, can you expand on that? I was wondering if maybe that was in response to changes in the COVID response. I guess I'm not really sure.
Through the chair, yes, actually, probably a larger adjustment to the health department was the movement of positions, activity from the department that was funded in 2021 with fund balance, and now is moved to the alcohol tax. But there are excuse me.
So I'm sorry, I think I missed
Nolan.
that.
I'm sorry, I got disconnected and I'm just joining by phone. Sorry.
Thanks, Nolan. Sorry, I think I missed something there. So is it what's being moved to the alcohol tax?
Multiple positions.
Oh, okay.
$1.6 million of positions that are no longer funded in general government, but they are now funded in the alcohol tax.
Okay.
So that's probably the more noticeable reduction for the health department, but there are, if you go into the budget document, either the resolution or what we call the reconciliation page for the health department, you will see that there are proposed adjustments in addition to that change.
Okay. We only have 3 minutes left, but Anna, do you want to jump in quickly?
Yeah, just to add to the list for our resolution would be, we've really talked about the operating budget, but there's also the capital budget. So I know it's smaller than last year. There was at least some parks projects that were taken off the list that were planned for 2022, which I know things change year to year, but I just want to flag that as well. And then again, echoing Carla's concerns about the parks, I guess how we pay for the parks operating, which I don't understand as well, but I think that sounds like a good thing to look into. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Anna. So I will add the health department cuts to the alcohol tax. Would that make sense, Tasha? Or maybe that would just be a standalone item.
This is Anna. I would say it should be a standalone item because I think there's a question of whether those positions should be funded by alcohol tax and that they were cut out of the general budget.
All right. Okay, so I guess I'm just wondering how we proceed from here. I would like to I mean, I guess I could take go ahead, Anna.
Yeah, I just because I mean, I want to be mindful of the Open Meetings Act. So, you know, if this was a normal project for me, I would say that, you know, one or two of us take a stab at drafting it out and then sending it around for review, and then knowing that we would use our next meeting to actually discuss and make changes and potentially pass it. So I just wondered, is there any issue with us using that process as long as we're emailing everybody?
Exactly, that was my question as well. Jonathan, maybe you could weigh in.
Yeah, so I think it is, so this is just based on experience. I agree. When we've done stuff virtually before, we have to be careful of the Open Meetings Act. So my understanding is that we can't have discussion between members, right? So we couldn't pass a draft from person to person to person to person, but we could draft something, Anna and the chair or whoever could draft something, give it to OMB. OMB could then send it to us and ask for comments. It then gets sent back to OMB. You just reply to OMB, not to everybody else, and then those comments get incorporated, and then we would adopt the resolution and discuss and adopt at our next normal meeting. So the key there, of course, is that we're not passing materials back and forth in discussion. It has to go to OMB, and it has to be through individual members commenting back to OMB.
Right, and thank you for that, Jonathan. That does refresh my memory. I can see that, you know, various iterations of resolutions were sent out with highlighting changes so that the committee could see what had changed from version to version, and then we did discuss and approve those resolutions at a regularly scheduled meeting. So I will work with Vice Chair Brawley to come up with something to get back to OMB to circulate to the group. Does that sound okay? Assuming it does. Is there
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, great. Is there a motion to adjourn?
This is Anna. I'll move to adjourn.
This is Nolan. I'll second.
All right, and we are adjourned at 1:01 p.m.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.